How's it going, folks? Stu here. Hope you're good. Hope you're doing all right. Today I've got something slightly different for you guys up my sleeve. I've been tagged. And no, I'm not talking about being vaccinated. I digress. If you follow a bunch of people that talk about film here on YouTube, you might have seen a little tag that's been going around, which is basically just giving your favourite films from every genre. I say every genre. There's only 10. I feel like there's more than that in the world. Who's deciding? I was tagged by the wonderful Luke Hearfield. If you've not seen his channel, link in the description down below. He's been smashing it lately. I don't know how he does it, but he has covered the Oscars and the award season relentlessly. The man's a machine. But if you like people talking about films in front of cameras, I'm gonna go ahead and assume you do, you will almost definitely love his stuff. So go check him out, links down there. But I was one of his taggees, which is how you're supposed to end these tags. I'm gonna cop out. All right, I know it's a bit annoying when people do this, but I'm not going to tag 7 other YouTubers. I'm just going to say, if you're watching this and you have a channel in which you talk about films, or even if you don't and you just think, I'm gonna have a piece of that pie, do this on your own channel and then let me know in the comments below that you have done it on your own channel and we'll all go and watch it and we'll go, what a different selection of films. These are the genres we'll be talking about today. Look at them. You're a bunch of bloody good looking genres, aren't you, my guys? Apparently originally this was only meant to be 10, but Luke in his video added another 3 rather sneakily, you naughty old beaver. And I agree with him, they belong there. So I'm doing 13 as well. Right, that's just how this rodeo's gonna go. Before we get started though, subscribe and like. Nothing else to say. Now we'll get started. Let's go straight in with sci-fi. Sci-fi, I think a lot of people, myself included, and you know, your mind immediately goes to space. You know, all moons and stars. But sci-fi is a pretty broad genre, right? It doesn't have to just be space. It's not sci-fi, am I right? Fuck. All of this to say I picked Jurassic Park. It's the best sci-fi film, isn't it? Jurassic Park is one of the best films of all time, full stop. Spielberg at the top of his game. Everything about Jurassic Park is executed so perfectly. The characters in this are so good and all of their arcs are so wonderfully executed. And it's not just that Spielberg pulls that off, it's that he pulls that off whilst weaving it in with the story of cloned dinosaurs escaping on an island theme park. I love it. It's so good. A lot of films you kind of remember specific sequences from, and so I don't know if this is just me, but I'll go and rewatch films in the knowledge that I'm just really there to get to like one sequence in the latter half of the film or whatever. Jurassic Park is all of those sequences for nearly 2 hours. Call it one long sequence, if you will. I mean, that's a film, right? I've just described a film. The next genre is animation, and there's a lot to pick from here. I don't know why I say that as if there isn't a lot to pick from all the other genres, but I don't know, I found myself like changing this answer a lot. And it will change in the future, maybe, but maybe not, because The Nightmare Before Christmas, probably the best animated film ever made, isn't it? What's not to love about The Nightmare Before Christmas? Rhetorical question. You can't answer it. The animation is so good. The story is so good. All these Halloween characters living in Halloween, learning about Christmas. It's so good. Is it a Christmas film? Is it a Halloween film? It's a Halloween film. Put that one to rest immediately, why don't we? It's not just so good, it's the best animated film. But you know what else is a bloody genre? Drama. Drama really is the one where you could just fit so many films into drama. I've always found it strange because every film has drama in it, right? To some extent. I picked Synecdoche, New York because this film is like being battered emotionally. And I mean that in an entirely positive way. It's so meaty and it speaks to so much, and there's just so much going on from a dramatic sense that every watch of it gives me something new and I appreciate it more. It is still engaging when you come back to it after the 5th, 6th, 10th time. So well written. I love the many layers of this. I mean, it's Charlie Kaufman, so you might think he's a bit pretentious. Fine. You're wrong. But Philip Seymour Hoffman is the lead, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is, say it with me everyone, the best actor of all time. Now we find ourselves at romance. Oosh. What a genre, huh? This one, I feel like I'm cheating here because I wanted to put this one in drama originally. It's my favorite film of all time, period. And so it had to get here somewhere on the list. But I also wanted to get Synecdoche, New York in on drama. So this is romance. It is romance. But it is not like, ooh, we're gonna stay to love is the best thing in the whole wide world. Not one of those films. It's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. A film about a breakup. What to say about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that hasn't already been said by me on my channel before? I'll keep it short. Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet are perfect together. It's insanely creative and imaginative. I adore shit like this, going through people's minds. The visualization of that I always find fascinating in film, and it's so moving. I love when films take really abstract concepts and then like gradually just sort of hit it home, and it's like, hey, you've thought you're watching this abstract stuff, it's actually very real emotions. Sit down and cry. I find this film incredibly moving in different ways every time I watch it. You get interesting beats which play different depending on what frame of mind you're in. Do not watch this film after an actual breakup. You might not survive it. Action. I feel like I'm starting the video. The best action film of all time. It's Point Break. It's Point Break. I and ahed about like, anything else, and then I just ignored them all. It's Point Break. Directed by Catherine Bigelow. It's her best film. Young Keanu Reeves. Oh, what young Keanu Reeves! As an undercover cop who learns to surf. Patrick Swayze. Surfing. Shooting. Running. This film, they run so good in this film. They jump out planes. You can watch Point Break and think, whoa, this is so 90s. But also still admire that it's doing everything so well. Like, it's genuinely well made. It's great action filmmaking. It's the best action film of all time. There's nothing else to say about it. But let's move on to comedy, which is probably the most difficult one for me to work out because there's so many good comedy films. There's so many. How to pick the best comedy film of all time? I was torn between two, but I'm not going to put two, but I will tell you I was very torn between two. And they're two I always come back to and I can always watch and I'm always quoting. The one I didn't go with that very nearly made it is Zoolander. I'm basically saying two at this point, aren't I? I'm just am. But Zoolander is one of the best comedies of all time. But so we won't talk about it. So I'm not talking about two films for the comedy genre. The best comedy film of all time. It feels weird. When you say it like that, you're like, is it? I'm not going to question. No, it is. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Maybe that's a surprise to some people. I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's just not that good. Like, if you go on Letterboxd, it's a pretty averagely reviewed film. I think it's quite a cult film, which surprised me because growing up, I just assumed everyone adored Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. We watched it relentlessly as kids. Don't know what that says about my parents' parenting skills. We'll skip past that. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know what to... It's so funny. I love parodies. I was kind of obsessed with parody films growing up. I used to love doing my own parodies of films, and I used to love watching parody films. Obviously, The Spy Who Shagged Me is a play on The Spy Who Loved Me, the James Bond classic, but it's just so silly. It's such a silly film. It's so dumb. Let's move on to adventure. Ooh, I could have put Jurassic Park in here. I know Luke did that, so... you know, maybe that worked better in adventure, but the reason I put it in sci-fi is so that I could put this one in adventure. The best adventure film of all time is The Goonies, and I don't know why I need to explain this. Every time you watch The Goonies, it puts you immediately into that kind of childlike exploration mode, right? The 80s-ness of it, the cast, the set pieces, the story, it's like my happy place, The Goonies. I'm such a sucker. This is very specific and not the reason it's the best adventure film of all time, but it might be actually. But I'm such a sucker for bits in films where people like fall down a trap and it's just a slide, right? They're going down a water slide, but it's like rocks or it's like, I don't know, something that isn't actually a slide, but you're like, that's a slide. I want to go down that slide. The bit in The Goonies where they're sliding down the tunnels in the cave, every time I watch it, I want to go down those slides, and it kills me that I can't. Next up is comic book movie. Ooh, I feel like this one's ripe for controversy, I guess. Everyone's always like, what's the best comic book film of all time, and why is it The Dark Knight? I don't think it is The Dark Knight. Oh, yikes. That's a hot take. My favorite comic book movie ever is Kick-Ass. I think it's Kick-Ass. I was thinking about this, and it's Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass it's a superhero film directed by Matthew Vaughn, who you may know from doing Kingsman. He did X-Men First Class. Yeah, but Matthew Vaughn's Kick-Ass, it lies so perfectly in between almost being kind of like a parody ish of superhero films, and I like being really playful and knowing what's silly and what's great about comic book films, but also being that and like wearing that with pride. Nick Cage is so good in this film. So good. So underrated. The action is so good and is so playfully executed. It's got big comic book moments, but it is also genuinely filled with a lot of heart. Let's talk about horror. I love the horror genre, and again, this pick feels like cheating because it feels like I feel like a lot of people would put it in a different genre. Those people are wrong though, because it is a horror film. There seems to be debate about this online, but it is a horror film. It's Alien. Ridley Scott's Alien, it's so iconic. It's so iconic, but that's not enough to be an amazing film, really, is it, at the end of the day? It's iconic because it's attached to such a fantastic tone. It genuinely makes me feel scared when I watch it. The tension is so good, and the design of the alien, the titular alien, is genuinely fucking scary, right? I saw this when I was little and I shit myself like you wouldn't believe it. But next we move on to Western, which is admittedly the genre on this list which I've not seen the most of, right? Compared to all the other ones, I don't really watch a lot of Western films, a lot of the Western classics. So my pick for the best Western film is probably going to be a surprise in that I don't actually think a lot of people saw it, but I'm going to pick it anyway because I want more people to see it. And it's the one that stands out to me. When I think of Western films, I immediately think of watching this and being so surprised and just kind of blown away by it. It's Sweet Country, which is an Australian Western film from 2017, directed by Warwick Thornton. This is a really brutal film. So let's get that straight out the bat. It's basically set in the early 1900s, and it's about an Indigenous man that kills someone in self-defense and as such has to go on the run because he's now being hunted by all the white people in Australia that are obviously like, fuck this guy, because of obviously the attitude and environment around Indigenous people in Australia at the time. But I've never seen a Western deal with this specific time period, location, environment and theme, and so I found that to be the most refreshing thing about it. But I was more so blown away by the lead performance from Hamilton Morris, who is so astonishing in this film. It's crazy. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I am a big fan of kind of slow, patient, methodical films dealing with quite brutal subjects. That makes me sound like a crazy person. But you know what isn't a Western? The genre of musical. Oh, shit the bed, I am not good at these segues. Musicals are so good. There are people in this world that just don't like musicals. I say that, but there are bad musicals. You know, there are terrible musicals. There's The Greatest Showman. But I am a big sucker for musicals, and it's a good, wealthy genre to pick from, but there's only one obvious winner here, guys. It's clear. It's bright as day. It's screaming at you. It's saying, I'm the best musical ever made, my friend. It's Moulin Rouge. It's Moulin Rouge. I could leave it at that. I'm not going to. It's one of my favorites, and I will never get tired of it. Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman's relationship in Moulin Rouge is perhaps my favorite relationship on screen. But above all, every song is so good, and it's so well performed. I love Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman's voices in this film. El Tango de Roxanne is probably the best musical song in any musical ever, for what it's worth. There's nothing like Moulin Rouge. Honestly, there's no other film I can think of that can possibly pull off some of the shit that Moulin Rouge pulls off so well. They fucking start waltzing out of a giant elephant into the clouds and the moon is behind them singing. And if you watch that and you think, too on the top, just a bit too over the top. Who hurt you? How could you not love that? Because he doesn't love you! Him! Because he doesn't love him! Whew! I don't think there's anything that gets my heart going quite like that. Next up is fantasy, another one of Luke's additions. Why wasn't fantasy in this list before? That feels like a glaring omission, right? What's the best? What's the best fantasy film? Oh, I don't know. Lord of the Rings. All of them. All Lord of the Rings films are the best fantasy films. I know it can feel like a little bit of a cop-out sometimes to be like, they're all one film, when they are actually separate films. But they're all one film. I don't know what there is to say about Lord of the Rings. I sound exhausted at this point. I'm so exhausted from loving Lord of the Rings too much. I don't know what there is to say. It's the best fantasy film. But it feels so big while also taking the time in every moment it needs to do things on a small level. And I don't quite know how to fully describe that, but I love that. And the only reason it works so well is, you can have your huge action spectacles, your massive wars with groundbreaking visual effects which make it look like you are just watching thousands of people attack. You can have all your fantasy elements, your giant elephants, your trolls, or your wizards. You can have all of that, but it doesn't work if you don't have an insanely grounded sort of character base. That is what I love so much about Lord of the Rings above everything else. All of those other things exist in there, you know. It's got some of the greatest action set pieces of all time. It's got huge epic scale wars. It's got gorgeous cinematography. It's got all the fantasy elements, but it's that core of the Fellowship which works so well every time. You feel safe, I think, with the Fellowship, with this central group of hobbits, and that's what I think it does so well. But it's like a masterclass in filmmaking, because throughout such long run times, 3 films, Peter Jackson is doing so much with basically every genre, right? And that is, you know, as a creative, as someone that likes making things, it's like genuinely inspiring to watch it. Fuck! It's Lord of the Rings, man. It's the best fantasy film. But now we're on to the final genre, which is another one of Luke's additions, which, again, why was this not in the 10 genres to start with? Thriller. You know, that little niche genre. Only one film in that. I couldn't possibly pick from all of the thrillers ever. I love a good thriller film, so this was, again, a very difficult genre for me. And I'm going to make a bold choice. This is a bold choice because I hadn't seen this film up to a week ago. But this film was so good that it is immediately, I think, my favourite thriller film. And it's hard to decide that, right? I'm sure of it, though. I am sure of it. It's Brian De Palma's Blowout, which, if you've not seen it, it's John Travolta and Nancy Allen, and it's basically about a sound engineer that's creating sound effects, Foley sound, for a film he's working on, and he happens to accidentally record the murder of someone. But it is just so good, and I'm deeply ashamed it's taken me this long to finally watch it. I bought it on Blu-ray like 3 years ago, so it's just been sat there begging to be watched, and I finally put it on, and it's genuinely an all-timer. Every moment it's so well executed. There's an incredible sequence towards the beginning where John Travolta is sort of retracing his steps when he's recording sound, and we're seeing something we've already seen from a different perspective, and it's edited, it's shot, it's just so masterfully put together. Oh my god, and the ending of this, I mean, everything about this film is so good. It's fantastically old school, but also, again, it's one of those old films which you can appreciate for its time, but still, there's still so much to learn from it. You watch it and you're watching someone that has such an insanely good understanding of how to move a camera, how to create suspense, how to build a sequence. It's just a masterclass. It's so good. Also, young John Travolta with a huge dimple on his chin. And that's it, folks. That's my journey through genre. I hope you've enjoyed your time here on this absolute roller coaster of a journey. But those are my picks for my favorites of all of the genres listed. I reckon if you ask me this in a few years' time, probably lots of different answers, maybe, as you sort of go back to watch things that you haven't seen for a while. You have different approaches to things. Some of those I definitely don't think are moving, though. Like all-timers. Absolute all-timers. Thank you so much to Luke for tagging me in this and getting me to do this. It was a lot of fun. As I said, link down below for his channel if you want to see his picks and some of his videos. As I said right at the front, I'm tagging all of you mother lovers to do a list of your own. Let me know what your favourite films from each genre are. If you've done one, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe for new things coming shortly. And I will see you very soon for hopefully not as long a video as this. Goodness, my throat is dry. I'm going to guzzle water quicker than you can say. Stop, Stuart. That's not water. It's ethanol. Just you try and stop me. Oh yeah, that's ethanol. Call an ambulance.